It's a completely decentralized network that is flawless, monetary network that's growing on its own volition. Doesn't matter what any individual does. And now you've got countries like El Salvador and now Paraguay just announced that they're also adopting Bitcoin as a legal tender. So there's another 8 countries in the region that are going to go Bitcoin, hyper-Bitcoinization. This is the beginning of a global Bitcoin standard. This is this event on July 8th in Austin is a bit of a victory lap because, as you know, for 10 years since Bitcoin was $1, we've been saying to buy Bitcoin that it's going to compete, if not replace gold, that'll become legal tender, it'll become the Bitcoin global standard. So it's a way to have some fun, kind of like as a victory lap, because we won. You know, we won this race. All the fiat money's on the back foot. Gold is not doing anything. The altcoins, as they're called, whether it's BCH or BSV or Ether or Cardano or XRP, they're all now have been pretty much shown the exit because they claim to do things that Bitcoin can't do. But now Bitcoin has proven that it can do everything any of these things can do, but it can do it a lot better. So there's no use case for those altcoins whatsoever. I don't think many of them will be around in 2 or 3 years' time at all.
You know, if you look at just the raw numbers of blockchains today, Bitcoin is currently processing a bit less than 3 transactions a second, and if it goes close to 4, then it's already at peak capacity. Ethereum, right, over the last few days, it's been doing about 5 a second, and if it goes above 6, then it's also at peak capacity. So, on the other hand, Uber on average 12 rides a second, PayPal several hundred, Visa several thousand, major stock exchanges tens of thousands, and if you want to go up to IoT, then you're talking hundreds of thousands.
Right. This is a sea change. This is again like the internet. It's a quantum leap. It's for 20 years the cypherpunks have been trying to create digital gold. They finally succeeded in 2009. And now the world is completely changing. And when a country started adopting Bitcoin as legal tender, which is something that even a year ago, 99% of the people you told that to would scoff and say, never, never, okay? Now it's happening. And price recovery is going to be just as quick as we saw this pullback. We're going to hit new all-time highs very quickly. And it's still 220,000 target in 2021 because the total addressable market, Daniela, for this entity, for this new asset class is $400 trillion. And it's still under $1 trillion. That's a 400x upside. So do you want a piece of that? Or do you want to sit back and grow olive oil, like Frank Giustra, and, come in every once in a while and wax poetic about the history of gold and how it's preserving its purchasing power, meanwhile missing the most exciting development in finance in 500 years.
In general, the problem with Bitcoin is that although it's got some very attractive characteristics, it's also got some downsides. Firstly, it doesn't have the necessary scale. Bitcoin transactions are going through, of the order of 1 transaction per second. But if you wanted to compete seriously with Visa or MasterCard, especially in the run-up to Christmas, you'd need to be doing at least 1,000 times a second. Second, the sheer volumes of money that you would need if you were to process interbank transactions, for example, would be several orders of magnitude larger. Third, there are all sorts of issues around failure and recourse. At present, if you've got a payment system, you basically have to run a help desk and you have to run a fraud detection service and an asset recovery service and so on, so that if something goes wrong, you've got somebody to call. And that's a requirement in Europe with the Payment Services Directive. But Bitcoin has none of that. If somebody hacks your computer and steals your Bitcoin wallet, there's nobody you can phone. The money is irretrievably gone. So for that reason, there's some debate about whether Bitcoin is actually a currency at all. And I personally tend to see it simply as being something like an industrial bearer bond, a digital equivalent of a gold coin.
Down to Texas now, where they are embarking on this experiment to see if it's going to be different this time. Kate Rooney is here with more for us. Kate?
Hey, Kelly, Bitcoin mining facilities like the one here in Rockdale, Texas, take a lot of energy. You can see these supercomputers behind me. They're stacked about 20 feet in the air. The hallway I'm standing in is about 3 to 4 football fields long. And a lot of people in Texas are wondering, a little bit worried here about what this means for the already fragile energy grid. Miners, though, say that they shouldn't be worried. Energy here in Texas is among the cheapest in the country. Texas operates its own power grid. It's deregulated, but it has been proven to be pretty fragile during peak demand. The state saw rolling blackouts in the winter and sees the same during heat waves. Miners say that they shut down operations at times like that. We saw it here yesterday, and because they buy energy on a long-term contract at stable prices, they can often sell it back into the market at a premium when the prices spike. They say that they are not competing with folks at home trying to run their air conditioning. Miners get a notification from the power grid operator known as ERCOT. They can flip off a switch and turn off these mines in seconds. It's been roughly 98 degrees here, so we saw it happen a couple times. But this means that they are also losing out on a key source of income. Of course, new Bitcoin, and it is up to the miners to make that call. They push back on the idea that some might try to get around this system.
Anybody that enters into this business, as you can see because of the infrastructure behind us, it's capital intense. Bad actors typically aren't spending hundreds of millions of dollars to build these facilities. So you're wanting, A, to receive the best incentives, the most benefits from the city, the state, and the counties. And to do that, you have to hire, behave properly, and actually just be a good citizen.
And Kelly, miners say that in more normal times, they actually help balance the power grid by adding demand to places like Rockdale and more rural areas versus cities like Dallas or Houston. Back to you.
Worth about half of the entire S&P 500. You know, there's no relation between value and usefulness. And on the usefulness side, let me just, you know, there's the currency, like Bitcoin, and then there's the technology, like blockchain. Blockchain technology has terrific applications, including financial transactions. But we don't need a new currency to do it. And by the way, there's no reason that a new currency should instantly have, you know, billions of dollars of value.
Hey, Bill, it's Karen. Let me ask something. I read your piece. I agree with almost everything you said on the ICO market, but Bitcoin itself, a lot of the arguments you made, one can make them for gold, and yet gold exists as a part of people's portfolio. You can't really transact very well in it. You can transact much easier in Bitcoin, and it's only a store of value. It's not as volatile, but it's been around a lot longer. And then, I mean, these are properties that Bitcoin has as well, and people think of it as an asset class, which Bitcoin is sort of emerging as. So how do you differentiate between gold and Bitcoin?
Well, you know, I think similarly, gold is, yes, an asset, but not something that generates revenue or profits. It's just something that sits there. And it's got a long history of being something that people will look to for stability. And in fact, it has reasonable stability in price, at least vis-a-vis something like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is, you know, where does the value come from? Well, if it's not an effective means of payment, if it's not a great store of value, and I don't think it is either one of those things, because at very least the volatility, well then what makes it valuable? People say scarcity. You know, there's no more than 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be minted. Fine. You know, my autograph is scarce. I can promise that I will never autograph a piece of paper more than 21 million times, but it doesn't make it valuable.
Well, the network effect could make it valuable, right? And if you think about, you know, listen, we could sit here and go back and forth on that. I just want to ask you a quick question, Bill. Jack Dorsey, obviously the founder of Square, recently said he thinks the world's going to have a single currency, and he thinks it's going to be Bitcoin. But more importantly, he said the internet's going to have a single currency. Isn't there some truth to the potential for that, if you think of digital age that we are kind of immersing in, and how important money is in that?
Well, sure. I absolutely believe that that money should be digital, is becoming more digital, and will be effectively completely digital. Doesn't mean we need a new currency to record that.